Leadership isn't a rank. It's not a position or a job description. Leadership is a choice. It's the daily decision to take responsibility, not just for results, but for people. Anyone can be put in charge, but not everyone chooses to lead. Because leadership, at its core, isn't about authority. It's about service. It's about lifting others so they can rise. It's about building something that will last long after you're gone. The world doesn't need more bosses. It needs more leaders. Leaders who don't just demand excellence, but inspire it. Leaders who don't talk about values, but live them. Leaders who choose courage when fear is easier, empathy when anger is louder, and doubt is stronger. Leadership is not about being the smartest in the room. It's about creating a room where others can shine. Leadership that matters doesn't begin with authority. It begins with clarity. A clarity of purpose so compelling that it transcends transactions, tasks, and targets. The most influential leaders don't focus on what needs to be done first. They focus on why it matters. Because the why is the soul of leadership. It's what transforms a group of employees into a tribe, a company into a cause, and a vision into a movement. When a leader understands their why, they don't just have direction. And conviction is magnetic. People are drawn to leaders who know what they believe and are willing to stand for it. Most people operate from the outside in. They start with what they do and then try to explain how they do it. Only the most intentional leaders start from the inside out. They begin with why. Why does our work exist? Why does this matter to the world? Why should anyone care? And when people know the why, the what becomes more than just a task. It becomes a mission. Leaders who begin with why are not just assigning to inviting others to join a cause. This isn't about slogans or marketing campaigns. It's about identity. It's about meaning. People don't get burned out because of hard work. They get burned out because they forget the purpose behind it. The why is what gives work its meaning. It's what turns effort into commitment, sacrifice into loyalty. Leaders who articulate and embody a strong why give people something to believe in. They don't need to push or prod. They need to bribe or threaten. The why inspires action because it resonates with something deeper inside people. It taps into emotion, into belief, into values. A powerful why creates alignment. When everyone on the team understands when they're doing what they're doing, decisions become easier. Conflicts become less personal and more productive. People know what to prioritize because they understand what truly matters. When your why is clear, you stop chasing every new trend or reacting every little crisis. You start acting with purpose, with consistency, with focus. You stop being distracted by noise and start building something that lasts. The challenge is that discovering your why takes work. It requires reflection. It demands vulnerability. You can't just adopt someone else's mission statement and expect people to follow you. Your why has to be true. It has to come from experience, from belief, from live values. And you have to live it out every day. Because the moment your actions drift from your why, trust erodes. People can smell the difference between a leader who is authentic and one who is performative. A leader who lives the why doesn't just preach it, they practice it. In how they listen, how they decide, how they treat others, and how they show up under pressure. The reason most organizations struggle with engagement isn't because they don't pay well or offer enough perks. It's because their people don't feel like they're part of something meaningful. They don't know what they're really working toward. And when people don't have a why, they default to surviving. They comply. They do the minimum, but when they are reminded of why their work matters, they bring their hearters. They contribute. They create. Leadership is not about giving people tasks. It's about giving them purpose. And that purpose always begins with why we often mistake leadership for dominance, control, or strength. But the most powerful leaders are not the ones who speak the loudest or demand the most attention. They are the ones who listen, who lean in, who see and feel the people around them. Because leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of the people in your charge. And the tool that makes that possible is empathy. Empathy is not just a nice-to-have personality trait. It is a core leadership skill. It is the capacity to recognize the emotional landscape of your team. It's the ability to see the struggle behind the silence, the stress behind the smile, the fatigue behind the forced productivity. Empathy is how leaders connect to their people, not to what you say, but in how they see them. It's what creates trust, safety, and engagement. And yet, too many leaders dismiss empathy as weakness, when in reality, it is the most human form of strength. When a leader lacks empathy, they may still get results, but they won't earn loyalty. People might follow their instructions, but not their example. They may camp, but they won't commit. Empathy isn't about being soft or lowering standards. It's about understanding people well enough to know how to help them rise to those standards. It's about meeting people where they are so you can lead them where they need to go. Without it, a leader is disconnected. Leadership leads to disengaged people. Empathy requires presence. It's not a task to check off or a skill to fake. It's a mindset, a way of seeing. It means pausing to ask how someone is doing and actually caring about the answer. It means paying attention to body language, tone, and energy. It means knowing your people well enough to notice when something's off and creating the kind of environment where they feel safe to tell you. And most importantly, it means holding space for others to feel what they feel, without judgment, without rushing them, without needing to fix everything. One of the most important things a leader can do is make someone seen, because when people feel seen, they feel valued. And when they feel valued, they go the extra mile. They speak up. They stretch themselves. They stay. People don't leave companies. They leave managers who make them feel invisible. But empathy is the antidote to invisibility. It's a bridge between performance and potential. It is the difference between being tolerated and being truly understood. A reason empathy is difficult. It forces us to slow down in a world that prizes speed. It demands that we make space for emotions in environments that reward efficiency. It asks us to be curious when we'd rather be certain. But in that slowing down, something powerful happens. We connect. We see the human first and the role second. We stop trying to force people into molds and instead create environments where people can be their whole selves. And when people can be their whole selves, they bring their whole capacity. Empathy is also to lead across difference. In today's world, teams are diverse not just in background, but in thought, perspective, and experience. You can't lead diverse people with a one-size-fits-all approach. You lead them by listening, by learning, by understanding their stories. When a leader shows empathy, they signal that every person matters, not just they do, but just for who they are. And when people know they matter, they give you their very best. Leadership without trust is just authority. It might get obedience, but it won't inspire commitment. It might drive compliance, but it will never foster creativity. At the heart of every high-performing AM, every resilient culture and every resilient leader follow a relationship is one thing: trust. And trust is not something you're automatically given when you get promoted or assigned a title. It's something you earn through consistent behavior, deep integrity, and genuine care. It's not granted in a moment. It's built over time. You don't get to decide if people trust you. They do. And they decide based on what they observe, not what you say. It's not enough to tell people they can count on you. They have to feel it. Trust grows when words and action match, and what you promise and what you deliver are in alignment, even in the smallest things. People watch. They notice. They notice when you show up on time. They notice when you take responsibility. They notice when you speak about them with respect when they're not in the room. Every moment is a vote, and over time, those votes turn into trust, or the lack of it. Trust also requires vulnerability. This is where many leaders get it wrong. They believe they have to appear invincible, always in control, always knowing the answer. But no one trusts a perfect mask. They trust someone who's real. Someone who can say, I don't know, or I made a mistake, or I need your help. I need your vulnerability doesn't undermine leadership. It strengthens it because it signals humility. It invites collaboration. It makes you human. And when you're human, others feel permission to be human too. A leader who is trusted creates an environment where people feel safe. Not just physically safe, but emotionally safe. Safe to speak up, safe to disagree, safe to tell the truth. That kind of safety doesn't come from rules or policies. It comes from the character of the leader. It comes from how they handle conflict, how they respond to failure, how they treat people when no one's watching. You can't create trust by demanding it. You create it by being trustworthy. Trust is also a two-way street. Too many leaders ask for the trust of their team without first demonstrating trust in their team. You can't expect people to take initiative if you never let go of control. You can't expect people to be honest if you're being trust others when you transparent them. You give them space to grow. You communicate that they are capable, that their judgment matters, that they are more than just a function. And people who are trusted begin to trust themselves. They take risks. They innovate. They lead. Earning trust means showing up consistently, not consistently when it's convenient. It means keeping confidences. It means giving credit when things go well and taking responsibility when they don't. It means treating people with dignity, even when they disappoint you. Trust isn't built in grand gestures. It's built in 100 small moments. When you follow through, when you listen more than you speak, when you say what needs to be said with kindness and clarity instead of avoidance or aggression. In times of uncertainty, trust is what people cling to. When plans fall apart, when markets shift, when fear sets in, people don't need a leader who has all the answers. They need a leader they can believe in. Someone who has earned the right to be followed. Someone who leads not just with power, but with principle. Because in the absence of trust, everything slows down. Communication breaks. Initiative dies. Energy drains. But when trust is present, everything acceleratorship begins where comfort ends. It's easy to manage when everything is predictable, when the path is clear, when decisions are safe. But true leadership emerges in moments of risk, uncertainty, and fear. It's in those moments that the difference between a manager and a leader becomes obvious. What is, but a leader dares to imagine what could be. And imagining something better, something greater, requires courage. Not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. Courage in leadership isn't always loud. Sometimes it's climbs. It looks like speaking an uncomfortable truth full of silence. Sometimes it means standing alone when the crowd moves in another direction. Sometimes it's the decision to say, I was wrong, or I don't have all the answers. And sometimes it's just the simple act of showing up with your whole heart, even when you don't know how it'll be received. Courage doesn't have to be heroic. It just has to be real. And that's what makes it powerful. Comfort is a trap. It seduces leaders into maintaining the status quo, into avoiding confrontation, into protecting their image instead of their integrity. But no great leader ever made a difference by staying comfortable. Breakthrough, every innovation, every transformation began because someone chose to challenge the familiar. Because someone said, we can do better. And that choice is never easy. Courage will cost you comfort, but comfort will cost you growth. Leaders must be willing to take unpopular stands, not because it's easy, but because it's right. They must be willing to challenge ideas, not people, but challenge them nonetheless. They must be willing to make decisions that serve the long term, even when the short-term cost is high. This is where many falter. Who they fear losing favorite or simply support leadership is not about avoiding failure. It's about owning the responsibility to move forward even when the outcome is uncertain. Courage also means being honest. with others, but especially with yourself. It means asking the hard questions. Am I leading for validation or for vision? Am I protecting myself or am I serving my people? Am I hiding behind authority? Am I stepping forward with authenticity? The most dangerous thing a leader can do is lie to themselves, because self-deception spreads. It turns into organizational deception, and nothing erodes trust and momentum faster than that. There's a myth that leaders should always appear strong, certain, and invulnerable, but pretending to be fearless is not leadership. It's performance, and people can see through it. They don't follow leaders who pretend to have it all together. They follow leaders who are willing to go first, to step into the unknown, to do what's hard. When courage is contagious, when one person dares to go first, others begin to believe then too. That's how movements begin. Not with courage. With courage, this kind of courage is not just situational. It must be habitual. It must be practiced daily. In the small decisions, in the private conversations, in the personal reflections, it's built by doing the hard thing even when no one is watching. It's built when a leader chooses honesty over harmony, growth over ease, conviction over popularity. Because over time, those choices shape who they become. And who a leader becomes will always shape how their people behave. You cannot lead others into the unknown if you're unwilling to face it yourself. You cannot call others to be brave if you refuse to be bold. You cannot expect change if you're not willing to be changed. Courage is the cost of leadership, not the kind that charges ahead recklessly, but the kind that moves forward with clarity, humility. And conviction leadership lives into communication. It's the bridge between vision and execution, between mission and meaning, between the leader and the led. Without clear, honest, and consistent communication, even the best ideas fall flat. People lose direction. Teams fracture. Momentum fades, but when a leader communicates with intent form, not just to connect, something powerful happens. People lean in. They feel seen. They feel part of something larger than themselves. And that's where commitment begins. Communication isn't just about speaking. It's about understanding. The goal isn't simply to be heard. It's to be felt. It's to make sure that what you're saying is not only reaching ears, but touching hearts. That means tuning into more than just the words you say. It means paying attention to how you say them. Your tone, your body language, your timing. They all carry weight. People don't just listen to what you say it, and they watch how if the delivery contradicts the message loses its power. Leaders too often underestimate the emotional weight of their words. A single sentence can inspire someone to greatness or send them spiraling into doubt. A single moment of presence can restore trust that's been lost. People remember how a leader made them feel far more than they remember the metrics that were shared in a meeting. If you want to move people, you need to speak in a way that resonates, not with a PowerPoint, but with purpose. But communication isn't just one way. It's not a monologue, it's a dialogue. Leaders who talk at their people without listening to them don't inspire followership, they create distance. Real connection is forged in the space between speaking and listening. Truly listening, is one of the most powerful forms of communication a leader can master. When you listen with full attention, you send a clear message that you matter. Your voice counts. You are not invisible. And here's the paradox. People are more willing to listen to you when they know you're willing to listen to them. Communication builds trust when it's reciprocal. It builds respect when it's authentic. And it builds culture when it's consistent. A strong communicator doesn't just speak truth. They create space for others to speak theirs. They don't dominate conversations. They facilitate them. Because they understand that leadership is not about broadcasting your ideas. It's about creating a shared language of purpose and possibility. Too many leaders confuse transparency with oversharing or clarity with control. But real communication isn't about dumping information. It's about distilling insight. It's about being clear on what matters, even when things are uncertain. It's about saying, here's what we know, here's what we don't, and here's how we're going to move forward anyway. People don't need perfection from their leaders. They need honesty. They need to know that someone is guiding the ship with integrity and intent. In moments of crisis, communication becomes even more essential. Silence breeds fear. Vague messages sow confusion, but clarity creates calm. It doesn't mean pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It means naming reality without letting it define the future. It means being a voice of steadiness when the ground feels shaky. The best leaders speak hope without denying the hardship. They bring truth and empathy together in every sentence. Great communication is also deeply aligned with vision. It's not about repeating goals. It's about reigniting purpose again and again. And because people forget, people drift, people get caught up in the details and lose sight of the destination. It's the leader's responsibility to keep lighting the way forward, to keep reminding people why their work matters, how they're contributing, and what they're building together. Communication is the culture you create in every conversation. It's the signal you send when you're present and the signal you send when you're not. It's the story you tell, not just in meetings, but in moments of tension, in one-on-one interactions, in how you celebrate wins and handle losses. If you want to lead people effectively, don't just tell them what to do. Speak to who they are and who they're capable of becoming. Leadership isn't about pointing the way. It's about walking it first. It's about modeling the values, behaviors, and attitudes you expect from others. People don't follow what you say. They follow what you show. They watch how you act under pressure. They notice how you treat others when no one's looking. They see how, especially when it's hard, and they mirror that. If you want to build a culture of accountability, you have to take responsibility first. If you want a team that's resilient, honest, and mission-driven, you must embody resilience honesty, and purpose before you ever ask it of anyone else. Instruction has limits. You can train people, you give them processes and rules. You can even inspire them momentarily with your words. But if your actions contradict your message, the message dies. Hypocrisy is a leadership killer. When a leader demands excellence but tolerates mediocrity in themselves, people stop striving. When a leader talks about empathy but leads with ego, people stop trusting. When a leader tells others to change but refuses to grow, people stop listening. Your example is your loudest message, and people hear it even when you don't speak. Leadership by example means showing up first, staying late when needed, and taking the hit before passing blame. It means holding yourself to the same, if not higher, standards you set for others. It means being the one who goes the extra mile. Not for recognition, but because it's the right thing to do. This kind of leadership earns compliance, not just but loyalty. People follow those they respect, and respect is earned by action, not title. One of the greatest challenges in leadership is consistency. It's easy to lead by example when things are going well, when the energy is high, when the results are coming in. But the real test is when adversity strikes. When things go wrong, when pressure mounts, when plans fail, that's when people look to you most closely. They want to see, will you panic or stay calm? Will you blame others or take ownership? Will you shrink back or step up? How you act in those moments teaches people more about leadership which ever could. When you lead by example, you also create psychological safety because you show that you're not above the team, you're part of it. You make it clear that no task is beneath you, that no responsibility is too small, and that your role is not to sit above but to serve alongside. That posture creates trust. It builds humility into the fabric of leadership, and when humility is present, growth becomes possible. Feedback becomes easier. Mistakes become learning opportunities rather than shameful moments to hide. The leader who walks the talk sets a cultural tone. If you value innovation, people see you experiment and fail. You value integrity, let people see you tell the truth when it's costly. If you value collaboration, let people see you seek input, share credit, and listen deeply. The culture you're trying to build won't be shaped by your aspirations. It will be shaped by your behavior. And when your behavior reflects the future you want to build, others will begin to adopt that future as their own. This kind of leadership doesn't require perfection. It requires intention. It's not about always getting it right. It's about always being real. Being honest when you get it wrong. Being transparent when you're unsure. Being grounded when emotions run high. That kind of authenticity draws people in. It gives them permission to be real too. And in that space, people grow. Teams evolve. Cultures transform. To lead by example means to lead with integrity. It means that your values aren't just written on the wall. They're lived in your daily choices. It means that people can count on you, not because you're right, always aligned, because who you are matches what you say. Because you don't ask others to go anywhere you're not willing to go yourself. In that alignment, trust is born. Respect is nurtured. And leadership becomes something people choose to follow, not something they are forced to obey. The heart of leadership is not power. It's service. It's not about having authority. It's about using that authority to uplift others. The best leaders don't rise to the top so they can sit above others. They rise so they can better serve, so they can shoulder greater responsibility, not bask in more comfort. Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. That shift in mindset from self to service is what separates those who lead for status from those who lead for significance. Putting service before self means that the needs of the team, the mission, and the people come before your own ego, convenience, or gain. It means leading with empathy, with compassion, with an awareness that every decision you make affects real lives. It means stepping into each day not asking, how can this benefit me? But how can I make others better? That kind of servant-minded leadership doesn't make in your position. It strengthens your influence. Because people don't follow leaders who demand loyalty. They follow leaders who earn it through sacrifice and sincerity. Service requires seeing people, not just their roles or their humanity. It means recognizing the person who missed a deadline might be struggling silently, that the team member who's underperforming may need mentorship, not reprimand. That behind every title is a story. And when you lead with service, you take the time to understand those stories. You stop managing from a distance and start leading from proximity. You build relationships based on trust, not transactions. Because when people feel cared for, they give their best, not out of obligation, but out of commitment. Leading through service also means removing obstacles. It's not just clearing from the sidelines, it's clearing the path. What's asking in your way, and how can I help remove it? It's going to bat for your people, protecting their focus, advocating for their needs, and empowering their growth. It's knowing that your success is not in how much control you exert, but in how much potential you unleash. And sometimes the most powerful thing a leader can do is step back and let others shine. But make no mistake, servant leadership is not soft leadership. It's not about being nice all the time. It's about being real, being firm when necessary, and always being fair. It's about holding people to a high standard, not because you're hard on them, not because you believe in them. Service is not weakness, it's strength under control. It's having the courage to give people the truth with kindness, to confront issues without condemning people, to correct without demeaning, to lead with both head and heart. Putting others first doesn't mean forgetting yourself, it means being deeply secure in yourself, because only leaders who are not ruled by their ego can lead in a way that frees others. Only leaders who are not driven by insecurity can genuinely lift others without feeling threatened. When you lead from service, you stop competing with your team and start contributing to them. You stop managing for image and start leading for impact. You start measuring your success not by how much you've achieved, but by how many people you've helped succeed. Service also means legacy, because the true of leadership is not what happens when you're in the room. It's what endures after you've left. Did you build a culture that lasts? Did you invest in people who carry the mission forward? Did you create systems that don't collapse when you're not there? A leader who leads for self builds empires that fade. A leader who leads for others' movements that last. That's the difference. The greatest leaders aren't remembered for what they accomplished for themselves. They're remembered for what they gave, what they grew, what they left behind for others. They're remembered because they made people seen, safe, and supported. And in doing so, they awaken greatness of those serving leadership isn't about the spotlight, the footprint. It's not defined by the applause you get when you speak, but by the impact you make when you're gone. The most powerful leaders aren't chasing fame, status, or recognition. They're building something that outlives them. They're shaping cultures and values that continue to ripple long after their time has passed. Legacy isn't built in one moment. It's built over time through consistent action, clear vision, and a relentless commitment to making things better for others. Legacy begins with intent. It starts when a leader makes a conscious choicing. I'm not here, so I'm here to invest. I'm here to take all the credit. I'm not here to be remembered for titles or achievements. I want to be remembered for how I made people feel, for the values I stood for the lives I touched. That shift in mindset turns leadership into a mission. It becomes less about climbing and more about building, about being the best and more about making others better. What you build today will become the foundation for someone else tomorrow. Every decision you make, every person you mentor, every seed of trust you plant. It all adds up. That's why the small things matter so much. The way you show up on Ordinary Tuesday, the way you handle pressure when things don't go as planned, the way you celebrate someone else's success without needing to be in the frame. These are the moments that accumulate into legacy. Not just what you did, but how you did it and who you became while doing it. Legacy also lives in people. It's carried not in policies or plaques, but in the growth of those you led, the courage you helped someone find, the confidence you nurtured in a voice that was once silent, the leader you mentored who now leads others. That's the generational impact of true leadership. It multiplies. It compounds. It spreads, because when someone experiences the kind of leadership that lifts, that believes, that serves, they don't forget. And they pass it on. But legacy doesn't just happen. It must be shaped. It requires you to be intentional about your values, what you stand for, and what you will not compromise. It requires clarity about your vision, what to create, and why it matters. And most of all, it requires the courage to live those values and pursue that vision every single day, even when it's inconvenient, unpopular, or hard. Because a leader's legacy is not in the easy choices. It's forged in the difficult ones. To leave a lasting legacy, you must be willing to think beyond your timeline. You must plant trees under whose shade you may never see. You must pour into people not because it benefits you now, but because you believe in the future they will help shape. Legacy leaders don't ask, what can I get? They ask, what can I give? They understand that significance is not built by accumulation, it's built by attribution, and they're willing to lead from that place even if no one notices until much later. Legacy is also about consistency. It's not about having one heroic moment. It's about doing the right thing again and again, especially when no one is watching. It's about living in alignment with your principles, not swaying with the winds of popularity or fear. It's about being the same person behind closed doors as you are in front of a crowd, because the most enduring legacies are built on trust, and trust is built on integrity. When you lead with legacy in mind, you begin to see your time differently. It means become more than just transactions. They become opportunities to shape culture. Conversations become more than just exchanges of information. They become chances to lift someone's perspective. Every action becomes a brushstroke on the canvas of something bigger than yourself. And that awareness shapes how you lead, you serve, and how you show up for others. In the end, the measure of your leadership will not be found in the headlines you made or the accolades you received. It will be found in the people who are better because you led them, in the culture you cultivated, in the path you cleared, in the hope you sparked, in the leadership you left behind, but in your name, but your impact leadership is not a title. It is a way of being. It is a responsibility that goes far beyond just making decisions. It is about inspiring others to make the right ones. Leadership is about knowing yourself, communicating with clarity and authenticity, and building a culture where others feel empowered to thrive. It is about making decisions that are rooted in service and showing up for your people, not just when it's easy, but when it matters most. True leaders know that their actions speak louder than their words. They understand that leadership is not a sprint, but a marathon built on small, consistent moments of integrity and purpose. Leadership isn't about seeking followers. It's about creating more leaders. The legacy you leave is the sum of every action, every relationship, every lesson passed on, and every challenge you help others overcome. So, as you step into your role as a leader, ask yourself, what kind of leader do I want to be? What will my legacy look like? Will I lead from a place of service, of purpose, of genuine care for the people around me? The decisions you make today will echo into the future. And in the end, the true measure of your leadership will not be the titles you've held or the praise you've received, but the lives you've touched and the difference you've made in the hearts of others. Lead with integrity, lead with vision, lead with courage, lead by example. And above all, lead with the conviction that true leadership is a life of service to others. Because when you do, the legacy you create will not only outlast you, It will inspire generations of leaders to come.